Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name's John Campea, and this is Open Mic. Now, what is Open Mic? Well, I'm glad that you asked. You see, normally when the John Campea Show is running, and we haven't been doing the John Campea Show for a couple of weeks, it's been on hiatus, but the John Campea Show does return this coming Monday. I believe that's the 13th. July 13th, the John Campea Show returns. But what happens during the John Campea Show normally is that in the second half of the show, we just take your live questions. But here on Open Mics, that's all we do. It's just your questions, what it is you guys want to talk about. And hello to everybody who's joining us live right now. And thanks for being here today. I hope you guys had a great weekend. I know I had a very good weekend. Thank you very much. And a good day yesterday as well. And listen, we're not here to talk about UFC per se, but I got to at least mention Fight Island, UFC 251 this weekend. Biggest card in a while, and they got the fight. Now, the main event, for those of you who don't watch UFC, this is still interesting. The main event was supposed to be the welterweight champion Usman versus this guy, this up-and-comer by the name of Gilbert Burns, who is fantastic. He's an absolutely fantastic fighter. However, before he got to Fight Island, Gilbert Burns had to go through all the COVID-19 testing, and it turns out he had COVID-19, so they scrapped him from the fight. And so they brought in this other fighter that a lot of people wanted to see fight Usman named Jorge Masvidal. And I'm going to tell you right now, Usman's going to destroy him. Now, I didn't think this fight would happen because I said, somebody asked me last week if I thought, we could see Usman fight, get a last-second replacement in Masvidal or Kobe Covington or somebody else. And I said, nah, they won't do it. They'll just cancel the fight because Usman's not going to accept a new opponent on just 1 week's notice. He's the champion. He has the right to decline that. There's no reason for him to accept a fight on 1 week's notice. Well, he did. And now we're going to get this fight that a lot of people want to see, Usman versus Masvidal. I'll come out and say it right now. Usman's going to destroy Masvidal. Usman's going to destroy Masvidal. I've said, I get it. He's super entertaining, Masvidal. He's super entertaining. He is a better than average fighter, but he is overrated. I mean, he has 13 losses on his record for a reason. He is overrated. And I think Usman's going to destroy him. I'll be shocked if I hope he shocks the world. I'd love to be shocked. I would love to be shocked. I love being shocked when I'm watching fights, but I think Usman's going to maul him. I think Usman's going to totally maul him. Anyway, that's not what we're not here to talk about UFC 251, but you have to forgive me if I'm a little bit excited about it, and I want to bring it up just a little bit. So that's about it. Let's dive right into the stuff that you guys want to talk about. Okay, let's get into it here. We'll start off things here with the Wakandan Forever, who writes 4th of July, Nathan's famous hot dog eating contest. Joey Jaws Chestnut won his 13th hot dog eating title. 13th. 75 hot dogs in under 10 minutes, world champion and a new world record, competitive eating legend, and 13 championships overall. How many hot dogs do you think you could eat, John? Well, I'll tell you what, here's the other impressive thing about Joey Chestnut winning his 13th title. He did it with the second place guy, I believe, more than 20 behind him. That's how much Joey Chestnut dominates this competitive field, this competitive eating field. He won, and I believe he had more than 20 more hot dogs he ate than the guy who came in second. Crazy. And when you hear that, if you don't know Joey Chestnut and you don't know the world of competitive eating, you would think that Joey Chestnut would be this huge obese guy. He's not. He's kind of this tall, lanky dude. But he's trained his stomach. He knows how to work his esophagus, and he pounded back 75 hot dogs. 75 hot dogs in 13 minutes. And I was watching this other sports show yesterday, and they were pointing out that a more impressive record by Joey Chestnut is he also drank 7 pints of beer in 2 or 3 minutes or some stupid number like that. It is really crazy. It is really crazy. But anyway, how many hot dogs do I think I could eat in 10 minutes? I like a good hot dog, but I think if I really pushed myself, 6. I'm not saying that's what I would normally do, but I think if I really had to force it and I was trying to reach some kind of record, maybe 6. Maybe I could eat 6 in 10 minutes. Anyway, an anonymous viewer writes, Marvel, we are lifting our review embargo a couple of days before the movie comes out. Some people, this one must be bad. Forbes thinking of their Infinity War spoilers review. Yeah, that's why. I mean, I'm not exactly sure what you're getting at, unless you're making reference to the fact that Forbes, which is a great outlet, by the way, and their entertainment division is really good. And I know a couple of guys who run and work for like the movie division part of Forbes. They do a really good job. That said, Forbes, for those of you who don't know, is also one of those outlets that has a very spotty record when it comes to dropping insane spoilers in their regular reviews. And I mean, it's stuff that's not even debatable. Now, look, everybody has a different interpretation about what a spoiler is. Like, some people think giving away the major plot point of the movie, that's a spoiler. That's kind of more like, I fall closer in line with that. Others think, okay, so there's this one scene in the movie where De Niro and Pacino are in a coffee shop talking. Wait, I didn't want to know that. That's a spoiler. Well, really? 2 characters had coffee in a coffee shop? That's a spoiler. But to some people, anything is a spoiler. But by any definition, Forbes has, on a number of occasions, dropped major spoilers in just like their regular reviews. And I've been told it's something they're going to try to correct. So, I mean, whether they do or don't, let's see what happens with when the next big tentpole movie comes out, and we'll have to see. All right, next up, Jaron Morris writes, what makes the tragedy in Last of Us 2 even harder is finding out later in the game 2 characters' conversation and a hopeful look into the future of rebuilding their relationship just to learn what happens the next day. Listen, one of the big divisive things in pop culture right now is The Last of Us 2. And I never played the game. I simply experienced like the 11 or 12 hour story mode. I watched somebody put together like an 11 or 12 hour cutscene movie that also included all the gameplay that had story elements in it. And I simply watched like the 11, 12 hour story of it. And strictly from the story point of view, it's Oscar worthy. I mean, it's hardcore Oscar worthy. It's brilliant, powerful storytelling. There are a lot of people, though, that did not like the creative choices they made in the game. Fair enough. I thought it was stunningly brilliant. Like, I was really impressed. And you know me, I'm not terribly impressed by storytelling in video games. Video games are for gameplay, and rightfully so. And some of them have some pretty decent stories. I've got 4 or 5 games that I can think of that actually have really, really solid stories. And for the most part, most games have good stories for the game. There are a few games, though, that I think are just plain old, brilliant stories, game or not. I think Thief's End, Uncharted 4, is one of them. I definitely think the most recent God of War is definitely one of them. I think Last of Us is the best there's ever been. And you're right. And I don't want to give away any spoilers for anybody, but you're right. Their choice of this, they tell it in a very non-linear way. Because you go through half the game, and then it kind of changes gears, jumps back in time, and then progresses again from somebody else's point of view. And it creates a whole different layer of experience and the depth of the tragedy of the game. It's amazing. It's absolutely jaw-droppingly amazing. And not everybody feels that way, and that's totally fine. Same is true of movies. But for me and my money, it was, you're right, Jaron, that way they used that non-linear aspect of it just added to the emotional gut punch of the game. So personally, I agree with you on that. All right. Ben Rayner writes, hi, John. Happy 4th. So this obviously came in after the last episode. Hi, John. Happy 4th. I just rewatched Matchstick Men. Nicolas Cage, one of his better ones. The other, for the first time in years, so dang good it is. Matchstick Men is incredible. Might be my favorite Nick Cage movie. Face Off is a Travolta movie, in my opinion. I think it's a 50-50 thing. Anyway, what happened to Nick Cage? It's been a decade since Kick-Ass. Can he come back to A-list status? Well, listen, Ben, and by the way, thank you for tipping that much. I appreciate that very, very much. And in a couple of weeks, you're going to see this segmented out and put up as its own video on the YouTube channel. this is a question, the Nick Cage question is a question that's come up a lot over the past, well, more than a decade. Because you got to remember, when Kick-Ass happened, Nick Cage's career had already kind of been sidelined. And when Kick-Ass happened, so it's not like his career was going great and he did Kick-Ass and then all of a sudden his career fell off. No, his career had fallen off before Kick-Ass. And I remember there was a lot of people, me included, that thought, oh my God, he is so good in Kick-Ass. This is going to re-kickstart a resurgence of Nick Cage. Because he really was great. And you could, when you watch Kick-Ass 2, which I still think is good, I think Kick-Ass 2 is good. But the big thing missing from Kick-Ass 2 is Big Daddy. It's Nicolas Cage's performances as Big Daddy that added a whole different layer to that first one. Anyway, I feel like every few months we're asking the question, will Nick Cage make a big comeback? Will Nick Cage? Because, by the way, he's delivered in some small, overlooked, and ignored movies. He's delivered some really good performances recently. Actually, why am I forgetting the name of it? The one he just recently did was hold on a second. He just recently did Mandy. Is that it? If it's Mandy, I remember it was the name of the girl. The name of the movie was the name of the girl. The Mandy was great. Let's see. Was it? Let me see. Primal was actually pretty good. Yeah, Mandy. Mandy. I loved him in Mandy. But listen, this is what he's kind of been doing since Mandy in 2018. Nicolas Cage has done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 movies. Now, some of those are just in production, but he's done 16 movies in the last 2 years. Anyway, and in some of them, he's great. How can we not mention Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse as he's, Spider-Man Noir? He was great in that. I loved his voice acting in that. I really like Nick Cage, but yeah, I feel like Nick Cage, I don't think he will ever come back to A-list status. And here's why. It's not because I don't think Nick Cage, that Nick Cage doesn't have the talent to do it. He does. He's got Oscars on his mantle for a reason. I believe he's got the talent to do it. But it just kind of seems to me that Nick Cage, when you look at like 16 films in the last 2 years, it seems to me like Nick has kind of just changed gears. And he's like, you know what? I'm just going to work a lot. I'm going to work a lot in a lot of these smaller, maybe not watched movies, whatever. There's less pressure. There's whatever. Some people talk about how he's got this huge debt that government debt. So he just needs to take as much work as he can. Others think he's just doing it because, hey, there's no pressure in doing these ignored movies. He still gets to act. He gets to be in some stuff that he likes. I don't know. But I'm going to say, I don't think Nick Cage will return to A-list status. But that's not because I don't think he has the talent. He definitely does. And I would like to see it. I just kind of get the feeling that he's kind of over it. I don't know. I mean, and by the way, that's just me speculating. I got no insider information on that. But personally, Ben, I would love to see Nick-assance. We had the McConaissance. I would love to see a Nick-assance. In the cage with Cage. I'd love to see it, man. All right, next up, Superman Steve writes. And by the way, Face Off was awesome. Superman Steve writes, hey, John, cinemas in Australia opened last Thursday. Yes, so there are countries around the world that have clearly have fewer stupid people and have clearly done a much better job of dealing with the COVID problem. And they're to the places that they're even opening their theaters. Australia is one of those places, which is great. So you get to see some classic films. I mean, there's not going to be any wide release, new films right now, but at least none of the big ones. But hey, I wish my theaters were open right now. I would love to go, proper safety precautions, included. I would love to be able to go and sit down and watch Lord of the Rings. Just sit down, go watch 40-Year-Old Virgin, sit down, go watch the original Star, something like that. I would just love. By the way, Ann and I this weekend, we went to a drive-in. Tribeca took over the Rose Bowl in Pasadena, and they turned the Rose Bowl into this giant drive-in. And Ann and I went to go see we went to go see Apollo 13. Let me see if I can bring up a picture here for you guys. We went to go see Apollo 13, and what was really neat, when Ann told me, I assumed it was in the evening. Ann bought the tickets for us. So when Ann told me that the movie was at 4:30, I'm like, how can it be at 4:30? Like, how can it be at 4:30? That doesn't make sense. It's daytime. You can't go to a movie in the daytime. But here it is here. Also, let me bring it up. This was us inside of our car. They were playing some Looney Tunes stuff before the movie. What they did was, look how clear that picture is in the middle of the day. So what they did was, instead of a traditional projector, they put up these giant LCD monitors. Like these just giant stadium level Teletron kind of TVs. Is amazing. I mean, the picture was great, and we were able to sit there and go watch Apollo 13. What was really great was that Ann had never seen Apollo 13 before. Ann had never seen that movie before, and she loved it because she's a huge Tom Hanks fan. And it was her first time watching Apollo 13. It was great. It was a wonderful experience. And whether it's a drive-in or other theaters, but good on you, Superman Steve. I hope you guys have a good time enjoying your theaters. You guys earned it in Australia with the way you tackled the COVID problem. So good on you, and I hope you enjoy it. All right, Marie Seifring writes, let's see here. Some of my favorite Rene Russo roles in no particular order. Oh, I love Rene Russo. Get Shorty, Outbreak. Outbreak is a totally underrated movie. Everybody was talking about Contagion when the COVID-19 thing out, when the pandemic started. That's nice. I like Contagion. Don't get me wrong. I think Outbreak is better. I love Outbreak. Anyway, in the Line of Fire, Lethal Weapon 3 and 4, the Thomas, I was going to mention, make sure you say the Thomas Crown Affair, Thor 1 and 2, plus Avengers Endgame, a lovely actress with a great career. Thanks. Yeah, and don't forget Nightcrawler with Jake Gyllenhaal. She was great in that. I love Rene Russo. And she's one of those actresses that I just like her more and more every time I see her. She's got, I think there's an argument to be made. I think sports, but, every once in a while, I like to bring up the mythical, doesn't actually exist, but a Hollywood Hall of Fame. I think there is an argument to be made that if there was a Hollywood Hall of Fame, that Rene Russo gets inducted on the day she retires. Like, I think there's an argument. I don't think it's a slam dunk. But Rene Russo's just had one of those careers that I think if there was a Hollywood Hall of Fame, the day she retires, I think there's an argument to be made she gets into the Hollywood Hall of Fame. And I think the bar should be very high. I think the bar for Hall of Fame should be very high, but I think there's an argument to be made there. Anyway, thanks for that, Marie. All right, next up. Adrian E. writes, hey, John, hope you're having a great day. I am having a great day, thank you. I think Shane Black's The Nice Guys with Ryan Gosling and Russell Crowe doesn't get the credit it deserves. It's an amazing film, but not all that many people talk about it. Hopefully more people discover it on HBO Max. Well, listen, we've been talking about Nice Guys on the various shows that I've run for years. Nice Guys, written, directed by Shane Black, of course, starring Ryan Gosling, Russell Crowe. Nice Guys, to me, is the poster child of it. Let's put it this way. It's the movie I bring up whenever I hear people complain, Hollywood doesn't make original movies anymore. Yes, they do. They make tons of them. Actually, and this is a fact, more original film gets made today than at any other time in Hollywood history. It's a fact. It's a statistical fact. More original film gets made today than at any other time in Hollywood history. The problem is you don't go watch it. And the poster child for that is Nice Guys. That movie is flipping brilliant. It is a fantastic movie. It's entertaining, it's funny, it's exciting, it's got a really good plot. It is a wonderful movie. Just plain wonderful. It had big stars in it. You had a big filmmaker involved. The trailers were great. But it didn't have the number 2 after it. Or the number 3 after it. and it didn't have somebody in a cape with big explosions and giant robots and alien monsters, and nobody went to go see it. Nobody went to go see it. And that's so for me, Adrian, that's always been the poster child movie for that. You know, whenever I hear people complain, Hollywood doesn't do original films anymore. Oh, yes, they do. You just ignore them. And a lot of us are guilty of ignoring them. But like, I know, like, whenever the question comes up, Hollywood doesn't make any original movies anymore, I go, okay. And I've done this like 8 or 9 or 10 times. I said, let's go over to the release schedule, shall we? And I would open up on the web browser a release schedule of the upcoming months. And say, okay, let's see what's coming up over the next 3 months. This movie's an original. This movie's an original. This movie's original. This movie's a sequel. Okay. That movie's original. That movie's original. That movie's based on a comic book. Okay. Original sequel. Original based on a novel. Original comic book, original sequel, original comic book, original. Like, it's always the same song and dance. But anyway, I'm getting sidetracked here, Adrian. Yes, that is definitely a movie. Nice Guys is absolutely a movie that never got the due it deserves. Everybody who saw it knows how great it is. But it's the poster child it is the go-to movie whenever you hear people say, you know, I just don't like that Hollywood doesn't make original films anymore. Oh, they do. They make lots of them. You just don't go see them. So anyway, yeah, Nice Guys is absolutely the movie for that. It is absolutely the movie for that. Okay, anyway, let's see what's next here. Thanks for that, Adrian. Tim writes in, I know you think Star Wars needed a plan. Yes, it did. But to me, I lay it all at Abrams. I don't think that's fair. Although, I mean, I hold Abrams responsible for The Rise of Skywalker, but I think he did a great job with The Force Awakens. Anyway, comics and TV shows have not had overall plans. Oh, yes, they do. Oh, yes, they do. Make no mistake. I mean, they don't plan 5 years in advance or anything like that. But comics and stuff, they have plans. They have plans. Just to ask any comic book writer who's ever worked on a major issue, on a major title, I mean. Anyway, comics and TV shows don't have horror plans. Tim, you know, you are factually incorrect about that. They absolutely do. Anyway, again, not necessarily saying they have 3 years worth of plans, but they do lay out what their overall story is. Anyway, even Lucas didn't have everything planned, Luke's sister. Well, no, that's true. Like, a lot of people forget that when George Lucas made the original Star Wars, he hadn't yet come up with the concept of Luke and Leia being brother and sister. That didn't happen until after Star Wars, the original film. And then he came up with the idea to make them brother and sister. But I want you to pay attention to something. That's a side note, right? He knew where he was he knew generally where he was taking everything. The major blocks were laid out. But yes, there are some things where curveballs come in. There should always be room for that. Anyway, Abrams couldn't even answer his own mystery boxes, much less follow Johnson. Yeah, listen, again, it is one of the things that really, there's a number of things that confound me about The Rise of Skywalker. As somebody who has enjoyed all of the Disney era Star Wars movies, there's a lot of things that really, except for Rise of Skywalker, there's a number of things that I find very confusing and confounding. Not the least of which is J.J. Abrams abandoning his own plans. You know, J.J. Abrams set up a lot of stuff in The Force Awakens. And this is the strange thing. For as everybody complains about Rian Johnson did a better job following up on JJ's foundation that he laid in The Force Awakens than JJ Abrams did in The Rise of Skywalker. There was never supposed to be Palpatine. Palpatine was never part of the plan. There was never... Rey was always supposed to be from no lineage. That was always the plan. JJ expressed that several times. The cast have all affirmed that. And when you watch the movie, I remember when The Force Awakens first came out, I kept telling people, guys, and this was before The Last Jedi, I say, guys, the movie makes it very, very clear that Rey is not anybody special's daughter. The movie makes it very clear. Y'all just want to believe her father was actually a prince and blah, blah. I said, y'all just want to believe that. The movie makes it very clear he's not. And then you read all the stuff that J.J. Abrams referred it. Daisy Ridley confirmed that that's exactly what J.J. told her about it, blah, blah, blah. But Rian Johnson followed through on JJ's foundation of The Force Awakens better than JJ did in Rise of Skywalker. But I get it. They were all just being reactionary to the backlash and the division. Oh no, people want Rey to be a princess. Okay, let's make her a princess. And he backtracked on his own plans. And that it was confounding to me. It was absolutely confounding to me. I mean, there are a million problems with The Rise of Skywalker. And I made a whole like 20-minute video kind of breaking down why as somebody who is a fan of the Disney era Star Wars movies, that The Rise of Skywalker did not work for me. And that was yet but one of them. But yeah, to me, it all points to the lack of a cohesive overall plan, a basic roadmap that they should have laid out for films 1 through 3. And then after film 1, if you want to take little detours and throw in, you think of new little elements to put in there, that's fine. But the basic overall narrative direction, there was none. And to me, that was not just part of the problem, that was the defining problem. I think particularly once you get into The Rise of Skywalker. But that's just my opinion. That's just from my perception from where I'm sitting. Other people feel differently, and I respect that. But yeah, that to me, that was kind of the big overall major problem there. But that's just me, Tim. That's just me. Anyway, thanks for writing that in, man. Thanks for that perspective. All right. Timbula the Spider Monkey writes, my top 10 remakes. Number 1, The Thing. That's great. Number 2, The Fly. Also great. Number 3, The Departed. Yep, based on Infernal Affairs. Number 4, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, 78. Number 5, Insomnia. I often forget that was a remake. Number 6, The Man Who Knew Too Much. Number 7, True Grit. True Grit, I actually thought was better than the original John Wayne version. I know that sounds sacrilegious to say, but I love that movie. I thought it was even better than the original. Number 8, The Blob. Number 9, Dawn of the Dead. Number 10, The Ring. Do you have a favorite that I missed? Well, there's a couple. I think Ocean's 11. I think George Clooney's Ocean's 11 is another example of a remake that was even better than the original. I think you're leaving off a big one, Scarface. A lot of people forget that Scarface was a remake. A lot of people forget that Scarface, Al Pacino's Scarface, was a remake. A lot of people forget about that. So those are two that are not on your list that pop off the top of my head. Ocean's 11 and Scarface. There's probably a few more if I think about them, but those are some great examples, Timbula. Well done. Nicely researched. All right. Calix Magister writes, your favorite SOB movie prison warden. Oh, that one's easy. I could tell you right off the top of my head, but let's see if you include him. Well, you just did right off the top. Gunton from Shawshank Redemption, of course, played by the great Clancy Brown. Oldman in Murder. Not Clancy Brown. I'm thinking of the guard there. I'm sorry. What say you, fussy britches? That's who you're talking about. That in Shawshank Redemption, Oldman in Murder in the First, Jones in Natural Born Killers, McGowan in Escape from Alcatraz, Sutherland in Lockup, Strother Martin, Cool Hand Luke. Oh, Cool Hand Luke! What a classic movie. If you got, I mean, look, I know there's some people that don't like watching a lot of older movies, but if you haven't seen Newman's Cool Hand Luke, you've got to watch Paul Newman and Cool Hand Luke. I get it. Not older films are not for everybody. I get that. But even if you're somebody who's really not into the older films, if you love movies, watch Cool Hand Luke. It is like one of the damn coolest movies ever made. Anyway, I believe that's the movie in the line. What we've got here is a failure to communicate. Anyway, my favorite Oldman, that straight rager as scene with Bacon is great. But you know me, I think Shawshank Redemption is a top 5, maybe top 3 greatest movie of all time. I think Shawshank is that good. I think it's a top 5, maybe even a top 3 greatest movie ever made. And every piece of the puzzle in Shawshank, from Robbins to Freeman to Brown to Gunton, it's damn near borderline perfect movie. I don't like using the word perfect, but it is a damn near perfect movie. And so I'm going to go with that one. Anyway, nice topic, Alex. I appreciated that. All right, Willow writes, if theaters do end up staying closed all year, will studios also be in serious financial trouble? They'll be, let's put it this way, they'll be in serious financial discomfort. I think that's the best way I know how to put it. If the theaters stay closed, studios are going to be in big financial discomfort. Anyway, are any of them in danger of going out of business, or can they still generate enough revenue from other means like streaming and VOD to survive? Here's the thing. These studios, they have many streams of revenue. The biggest one is clearly the theatrical release, particularly when we're talking about the big studios. We're talking about Sony or Universal or Sub Fox under Disney, Disney, Paramount, whatever. Their obvious biggest chunk of change, their biggest revenue stream is the box office. I mean, that's it. But they do have multiple streams of revenue that may not be significant compared to the money they make theatrically, but they still have money coming in. As opposed to, say, the movie theaters where they're just closed. They don't have any other streams of revenue. I mean, AMC launched their own VOD service where you could rent movies on the AMC. I don't know a single person. I don't know a single person that uses the AMC app to rent movies. I don't know a single person that does that. So yes, you could theoretically get an AMC app and like rent, rent a Matthew McConaughey movie, go rent Dallas Buyers Club or something, and maybe that'll generate a few cents for AMC. But for all intents and purposes, like, they have no other revenue stream. That's it. If you're open, you make money. If you're closed, you don't. The studios are fortunate in the sense that they are a little bit more diversified that way. Whether it's residual stuff, whether it's lapsing contracts, whether it's VOD, whether it's licensing, whether it's whatever, there are a lot of other revenue streams. So are they hurting? Yes. You know, Robert Meyer Burnett brings up a great point every once in a while on the show, in that you've got to understand too that a lot of times studios make these movies with borrowed money, right? Studios borrow a certain amount of money to produce the film, and the longer they have to go where they can't pay that money back, the interest is astronomical, and the penalties are huge. So they have all these movies that they've invested all this money in that are just sitting on a shelf right now. And the longer they sit there, the more expensive it becomes for the studio. So they are financially uncomfortable, in great discomfort, I will say. But it's not nearly as perilous as the problem with the theaters, because again, they do have other revenue streams to keep the lights on. But yeah, they want to get their movies back into theaters, Willow. Believe that. They want to get their movies back into theaters. All right. Let's move on here. Connor writes, "Hello, John. Thanks for all your hard work. We really appreciate everything you do for us." Oh, thank you so much, Connor. It's my privilege. Thank you, man. Disney Plus was supposed to go into a live action production on Peter Pan pre the event. Now, hear my fan cast out. Daveed Diggs as Hook, John C. Reilly as Smee. Again, I don't care about fan casting. I will talk about Daveed Diggs for a second, though. I didn't get, when I went to go see the live presentation of Hamilton, he was not in the presentation I went to go see, which is too bad. But I believe he played two roles. I believe he played Jefferson. What did I miss? He's so good. And I believe he also played Lafayette, if I'm not mistaken. I believe he also played Lafayette, which he's just incredible. And then like a year, was it 1 or 2 years ago, he did that one movie with the one-word title, not Train Spotting, it's Blind Spotting. It's, now I gotta go look it up. Give me a second. Hold a second. Daveed Diggs. I think it's Blind Spotting. Yes, Blind Spotting, which he was wonderful in. He was in that with Rafael Casal. Who directed that one, by the way? Carlos Lopez Estrada. That's not who I was thinking of. But he was great in Blind Spotting. I really like him. Whether or not I see him as a Hook, I don't know. That's a bit of a stretch. But again, all I care about is it a good actor in the role? And Daveed Diggs, what can I say? I only have a small sample size, But everything, as limited as it is, that I've seen him do has been really good. And John C. Reilly, I mean, John C. Reilly can play Lincoln. I mean, if you can make John C. Reilly play Lincoln, I'd be down for it. Anyway, thanks for that, Connor. All right. 50 Shades of Geek writes, John, what are your top 10 picks for what if X actor in X role in a faith-based movie about putting ketchup on eggs, then saying not on the phone, meet at the Death's Peak to talk about the Jobber Superman? Yeah, you pretty much got all my pet peeves in there in one kind of message. All of my pet peeves in one message. Yeah, I always feel bad, but like for years, like when people write in, hey, John, what are your top 10 this? And I always have to say I don't do top 10s. I mean, maybe once in a blue moon, I will do a thought out editorial that I'll then put up, but like spur of the moment, hey, John, what's your top 5 this? I was like, I don't do that. Like I would have to sit down, really think about it, come up with something, blah, blah, but I don't do that spur of the moment. Same thing as like what Connor was just asking. What do you think of X actor in X role? My answer is always the same. I don't care as long as it's a good actor. As long as it's a good actor, you can throw them in just about any role and I'll be perfectly happy with it. And I won't even get started on Jobber Superman. I won't even get started on that one. All right, Tyrone27 writes, 1 of 2. Hi, John. Being a computer engineer, I understand the analytics side of streaming services, Netflix, Prime, Google, Apple, and that your data is valuable to them, and try to block it as much as possible. Although you never truly can. I'm no advertising executive here in Australia, I'm assuming. Prime advertises their shows in theaters, Apple on YouTube. But apart from the occasional pop-up in your phone, Netflix never does. I just binged Warrior Monks, which is great, but I have no idea what seriously gives. I'm trying to think. I know there's a new show that just came out called Warrior Nuns. I think it's called Warrior Nuts. I don't know if you're talking about something else, which is another one of those things that I'd never heard of. Netflix does a terrible, terrible job of raising and getting awareness out there for their own programming. They do a terrible job of it. I mean, absolutely brutal. Brutal job of it. It's almost unbelievable. Now, I will say that I do believe I've seen them do some advertising in places. I especially in recent months, I will say I have seen them do some advertising in some places. And that's good. But yeah, you're right. I've seen far more marketing for original Apple content. I've seen far more marketing for original Amazon content, and they have way less original content than Netflix does. And yet I hardly ever seen them do anything. You're right, Tyrone. It's, and I don't know. Listen, we also all have to remember that I believe the number is $15 billion. Netflix is like, I believe the number is $15 billion in debt. They're $15 billion in debt. So maybe they think, hey, the money that we have, we are putting into our content. We're not going to spend our money on marketing. People know what Netflix is. And maybe there's an argument to be made for that, to be fair. Maybe there's an argument to be made for that. I'm not 100% sure, but yeah, Tyrone, that's obviously been one of the big, obvious, glaring things about why doesn't Netflix do more marketing of their own content? All right, next up. An anonymous viewer writes, how is filmmaking going to proceed in a post-COVID society? Is everyone going to be shot on green screens and placed into every shot where they're within 6 feet of people? I can't imagine the rewrites for movies already in production like Matrix 4 or Batman. No, really, it's not going to affect it much. Listen, this has come up a couple of times, so I'll just go back to it. Some of you may have heard me say this again. But what you do is, and what a number of studios are doing, is exactly, at least in format, what the UFC is doing. Let's take the new UFC event coming up, this Fight Island thing, right? So they've got a big, massive card coming up at this location. I believe it's on this island just off of Abu Dhabi. I think that's where it is. Anyway. And so what their safety procedures are is that before you're even allowed to go to the venue, you have to come to Las Vegas, get thoroughly tested in Las Vegas and be in isolation in a hotel. And then once your test comes back clean, then we can put you on one of our planes and take you to the fight location. They've been doing that ever since they restarted the UFC back up again. It's like you go to one place, you get tested there, you're there for a day or two, I think you get tested multiple times, and then once you clear, then you can go to the facility. And therefore, once you get to the facility, not only do you know that you're clean, but you know everybody there is clean. Everybody there has been thoroughly tested, isolated, and now we can all work. And even then, other than the fighters, like everybody else still wears the masks and all that kind of stuff. It's a safe environment. Warner Brothers have spent $5 million in putting these types of procedures in place for the restarting of shooting of Jurassic World Dominion, Jurassic World 3, where everybody who's going to be on set, great. You have to go to a certain location. You got to be there for a couple of days. You got to get tested thoroughly. Once you're tested, you're allowed to be on set. And they repeat the process. And then if you are on set, you can't go out on the town and you can't go traveling anywhere while you're here. Like while you're here, you're here. So I think it's just a matter of, studios, television programs implementing some thorough, common sense precautions in place. It'll be expensive. But once you do, listen, I can go in. If I'm an actor and I got to do a scene with another actor, if I know that actor has been through that process, they've been tested 3 times in the last 4 days, they've been isolated at a safe spot, and now they've come on set with everybody else who's been tested. I feel confident. I feel confident and I feel safe. Is it 100% guaranteed you're safe? No, but a sandbag can fall from the ceiling and kill you, and there's no 100% guarantee. So I honestly don't think you're going to see it change a lot. If the studios do what Warner Brothers is doing, which is implementing really good common sense, like what the UFC is doing, common sense, thorough, exhaustive testing, so that you know with a very strong degree of confidence that the people you are standing in close proximity to and that you're working with have all tested clean. I mean, I make it sound easy. It's not easy. And it is expensive, and it's going to, but once you do that, then you can just, when it comes to actually shooting your content, then you can just get back to the business of shooting your content. Simple as that. Anyway, that's how I think it's going to work out. We'll see, though. We'll see. All right. Tyrone27 writes, sorry, I meant to say Warrior Nuns. That's what I thought you meant. That's what I thought you meant. Warrior Nuns, by the way, won't give away the ending, but awesome. You're right about Doom Patrol. Last episode made me LOL. The last episode of Doom Patrol was so freaking good. The Sex Men episode, not X-Men, the Sex Men, was so, that episode was such a great sample size of what that entire show is. That one episode is a great sample size about the depth of the character narratives juxtaposed against the most bonkers, nutty, ridiculous stuff you can possibly think of, mashed together in this one incredibly unique show. I absolutely love it. All right, BC33 writes, I just found a video on YouTube where it replaces lines from Tenzin from Legends of... I've seen this video. Where it replaces lines of Tenzin from Legend of Korra, who is voiced by J.K. Simmons, with the lines of Simmons' character from Whiplash, and it is absolutely hilarious. The creator even got the lines to match the lip sync. So for those of you... By the way, until I saw that video, I didn't realize that J.K. Simmons did the voice of Tenzin. As soon as somebody said that, I'm like, oh yeah, that was J.K. Simmons' voice. But I didn't know. I didn't know. So anyway, I know a lot of you guys haven't seen Legend of Korra, but there's this airbender master who is the son of the last Avatar, Aang. So Tenzin is Aang's son. And he is now like the world's great airbending master. And he kind of becomes the mentor to the new Avatar, Korra. And it's voiced by J.K. Simmons. So what this one video did, and you really good show, just go look up Tenzin, J.K. Simmons, Whiplash, and you should be able to find it easy. Just search those 3 words, boom, it should be like the top thing that comes up. But it's Tenzin's voice, except it's the lines, the very colorful language lines from J.K. Simmons and Whiplash coming out of Tenzin's mouth. It is really funny. If you haven't seen it, take BC33's advice and go check it out because it really, really is hilarious. All right, Julius A. Goodwin writes, nothing to see here, just a robot doing the robot. Robot Man, God, I love Doom Patrol. That was a line from the last one where Robot Man, who is Brendan Fraser, his brain got put, because after a car crash, his brain got put into a robotic body. And he was feeling really down in the dumps about the way he failed as a father and how he hurt his daughter and how his daughter's rejecting him and all this kind of stuff. And the professor goes, you know, I could replace X liquid and X liquid that's currently in your system with ecstasy. And he's like, you want to give me ecstasy? He's like, yeah. And so he gives Robot Man ecstasy, and then all of a sudden Robot Man's out on the dance floor. One of the great lines from the episode is, nothing to see here, just a robot doing the robot. It was pretty great. Anyway, thanks for reminding me of that one, Julius. All right, Thanos writes, hey, John, I asked the other day what you thought the best performance from the Godfather trilogy was, and I agree with you. It's Pacino in Godfather Part 2. I cannot believe he didn't win an Oscar for that. To me, that's one of the best performances of all time. I don't know that I would rank it as one of the best performances of all time. Hold on a second. I don't think I would rank it as one of the best performances of all time. It is one of the great performances. No doubt, it is one of the great performances. But when was he nominated? There we go. He was nominated at the 1975 Oscars for Best Actor in a Leading Role. Listen to who he was up against. Jack Nicholson from Chinatown. Dustin Hoffman from Lenny, Albert Finney from Murder on the Orient Express, and then Art Carney, who actually ended up winning for Harry and Tonto. But listen to that Killer's Row. Art Carney, Albert Finney, Jack Nicholson, Dustin Hoffman. That's who Al Pacino was nominated against in that Academy Awards. So yeah, I'm okay that he didn't win. It is, again, to me, it is one of the great performances. I don't know that I would personally call one of the best of all time, but it is great. And to a lot of people, Godfather 2, there's a lot of people out there who will say that Godfather 2 is the greatest movie of all time. I'm not one of them, but for a lot of people out there, the only argument is Godfather 1 the greatest film of all time, or is Godfather 2? It's actually ridiculous what Coppola was able to do with a sequel. And hell, even the third one got nominated for Best Picture, and a lot of people malign that one. Anyway, thanks for sharing that, Thanos. Next up, Ryan Lohner writes, after seeing Hamilton on Disney Plus, I have to ask, who are all these parents who are apparently saying, I'm fine with my kids seeing a steamy portrayal of America's first political sex scandal, but God help you if there's any naughty words? Again, Ryan, here's the thing. And look, my position on this is I take a lot of positions that are the unpopular position because I don't give a shit what's popular and what's not. I'm just going to give you my honest opinion. But my thoughts on that are, it's not our place. It's nobody's place to tell a parent what should or shouldn't be priorities for them, and telling other parents what should and should not be acceptable or not acceptable for their kids. Like, I'm very big on, like, I love filthy, bring on the filthy, and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, do I think certain things are worse than foul language? Of course I do. Do I think there's a lot of things that are worse than nudity? Of course I do. However, if you've got a kid, it's none of my effing business what your kid should be exposed to at whatever age they're at. That's your decision as a parent. And I don't think it's any of our places to tell a parent what should or should not be that level of acceptability or non-acceptability for them. I don't think it's any of our places to say stuff like that, to be honest with you. And believe me, Ryan, I get where you're coming from because I sympathize with that position. And I know a lot of people have that position. But to me, I always think I just cringe a little bit. And I don't mean that as in the modern, cringy. No, I'm saying I find myself cringing a little bit whenever I catch myself or I see other people taking the position that they should be the authority to tell parents what should and shouldn't be acceptable for their kids. When I have a kid, will I let my kid watch something with foul language? I don't know. Maybe not. I'm not there yet, so I don't know. Will I be okay if there is mild, light nudity? If it's done not in a sexual way? I don't know. My first reaction is probably not till they're at least a certain age, but I mean, I don't know. But I think that's something that parents need to decide for themselves and their kids. And I don't think it's anybody else's business. And I catch myself sometimes doing it. I do. I catch myself sometimes doing it. And then I cringe a little when I realize what I did. I really don't think it's any of our business to tell parents what should and should not be an acceptable level for what their kids are exposed to at a certain age. So anyway, that's just my thought on that, Ryan. It's a good topic to bring up because it comes up a lot, but that's just kind of my position on that. Anyway, Dim Sum writes, where are we at? Arrivederci maestro Ennio. Oh, so you're writing this in Italian. So for those of you who don't speak Italian, goodbye maestro Ennio. Your music was unique and inimitable, which is a real English word, by the way. Rest in peace. Yeah, of course, Morricone passed away. Morricone, I should say, passed away the other day. I mean, one of the great, I mean, we all think, when we think of great composer, director combinations, you know, we'll think of Spielberg and John Williams, or, you know, Christopher Nolan and Hans Zimmer, or whatever. But maybe the most iconic combo of all time was Sergio Leone and Morricone. Is probably the most iconic. You know, it's really funny. Morricone didn't even win. He was like 91 or 92 years old. He didn't even win his first. He was nominated for 5 or 6 Academy Awards. He didn't win his first Academy Award until, I believe, 2016 in a mediocre to okay movie in The Hateful Eight. At least mediocre to okay by Quentin Tarantino standards. But the score was brilliant. So he won his first Academy Award for The Hateful Eight. It was the first one he ever won. At the age of 85 or something like that, 86, something like that. It was absolutely crazy, but truly one of the most iconic director-composer duos of all time. And rest in peace, indeed. Thanks for that, Dim Sum. Ryan Lohner writes, one of two, speaking of which, with the passing of Ennio Morricone, I have to say I just feel blessed to have lived at the same time as him for a while. To me, he is the true GOAT of film composers. Yes, even over Williams. I wouldn't go that far. But anyway, and in 200 years, people will be talking about them both the way that we talk about Mozart and Beethoven. Yeah, I personally would not put him on the same level as, say, a John Williams. But John Williams is just on such a different level from everybody else that's ever been there. Like almost every memorable movie score that you can hum along, that came from John Williams. Whether it's Star Wars, you know, the bum, 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 whether it's Superman, you know, the iconic John Williams Superman theme, or whether it's Raiders of the Lost Ark, or whether it's Jurassic Park, or whether it's Harry Potter, or whether it's Jaws, or whatever. On almost every single memorable movie score, for the most part, has come from John Williams. It's really rather crazy. But yeah, no, he was one of the greats. He was one of the greats. And again, like one half of probably the most iconic director-composer duo of all time. As a duo, I would even probably put them above like Spielberg and Williams. As a duo, they were just so interconnected. But yeah, anyway, we truly lost one of the greats. We lost one of the greats. Died at the age of 91 or 92. I can't remember. He died at home in Italy, which is great. But yeah, he will be missed. And by the way, he never retired. Like some people thought like Hateful Eight was the last project he ever did. He did like 6 or 7 projects after Hateful Eight. He actually even did a couple of projects. He was working right into 2020. He was working all the way into 2020, by the way. That's how badass that dude is. Anyway, GQ writes, Charlie Chaplin and Mr. Bean. Who do you think did the silent comedy better? And be honest, who made you laugh more? Here's the thing, though. They were very, very different characters, right? Like the Mr. Bean, Charlie Chaplin's wasn't just the clown, right? The Chaplin character wasn't just the clown, much like what Mr. Bean is. Like Mr. Bean is a clown character, and he's great. I love Mr. Bean. But Chaplin also had a lot more depth. By the way, Chaplin, he had one of the greatest speeches. Remember, he's the dictator? He had one of the greatest speeches in cinematic history. Like one of the absolute greatest speeches in cinematic history. So I don't know. It's very, very hard to compare them. Which one made me laugh more? Probably Mr. Bean made me laugh more. But Chaplin was the better. I don't know. It's again, they are such fundamentally different kind of characters and performers that it's really hard to narrow it down because, you know, Mr. Bean is a fictitious character. Charlie Chaplin is an actual guy. That's just the beginning of how these are two really different. So it's hard to compare. But thanks for bringing that up, GQ. All right. Murray Reich writes, my brother treated me to a remote watch party. Nice. The movie he showed me was Death to Smoochy. Here's the thing about, well, let me finish reading your question. I've never seen it before, but it was great. So funny, but it was a great experience, us seeing each other while watching and reacting, especially when he lives far away. You know, it's funny. Anne's old boss from Hasbro, my wife Anne was very close with her former boss from Hasbro, who lives out on the East Coast. And they would go to Broadway shows once in a while in LA. They would go to Broadway shows once in a while together. And they had tickets to go see Hamilton at the Pantages in Los Angeles. That was supposed to just be recently, but obviously it's closed. So what they did instead the other night was they got on Zoom together and watched Hamilton on Disney Plus together. And they got to have their reactions together and all that kind of stuff. It was really, really fun. But let me talk for a second about Death to Smoochy. Robin Williams, Ed Norton. When that movie came out, it kind of got slammed. Let me see if I can find Death to Smoochy, Rotten Tomatoes. Because I remember when that movie came out, it got slammed. Yeah, it's got a 42% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is even better than I thought it was. I didn't think it was going to be that good. That's better than I thought it was. But anyway, Death to Smoochy comes out. And it got pretty much panned. And so I didn't bother. This was like 18 years ago. So I didn't bother to go to see it. Anyway, one night, fast forward about a year or two later, me and some buddies are hanging out at my buddy's house in Toronto. And decided what we often did was order some pizza and rent a movie, right? And the movie our one friend brought home was Death to Smoochy. And a couple of us like, I heard that's really bad. But it's what they got. And so we popped it in. It's awesome. Death to Smoochy is awesome. I thought it was hilarious. And by the way, I think of a younger Jon Stewart, I believe, is in that movie as well. I think a younger Jon Stewart's in there as well. Anyway, that movie is freaking hilarious. Where like Robin Williams plays this disgraced television kids performer. And, you know, after he becomes disgraced, the next big thing is this Ed Norton character who plays this dinosaur Smoochy, and Robin Williams wants to take revenge on him. It's called Death to Smoochy. It's fan-freaking-tastic. I remember I watched that and I'm like, why did people hate this? This is so good. It's memorable. It's funny. It's Robin Williams. I'm not going to say it's Robin Williams' best, but Robin Williams was so freaking good in that. And the songs in it are so funny. Anyway, if you guys get a chance, if you haven't seen, I believe it's 2001, 2002, Death to Smoochy, go and check it out. I thought it's so good. I'm trying to remember Robin Williams' characters. It's Rainbow something. Rainbow Jack, Rainbow Mike. something. I can't remember exactly, but go watch it. Death to Smoochy is awesome. I'm glad you had a chance to watch it, Murray. All right, next up, Murray also writes, all these news going on teams changing their names reminds me of a very funny South Park did a thing about the Redskins. That's right. South Park called Go Fund Yourself. Basically, they poked fun at the Redskins. It's season 18, episode 1. I remember that. I need to go back and watch that again. Of course, there's pressure right now in the world. There's been pressure on the Washington Redskins for many years. This isn't new. There has been pressure on the Washington Redskins for years and years and years to change the name of the team. And I remember, actually, I used to live in Saskatchewan, Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. There's a really large Native community in Saskatchewan. And I remember the big discussion going up there once, where as Canadian, a lot of them found the term Redskin very offensive. And there's a lot of talk for a lot of years that they need to change the name. Anyway, with today's current climate, it's even gone up another notch. And it finally looked. Now, what happened was the owner of the Washington Redskins, his name's Dan Snyder. He's been very adamantly against changing the name. He wants to keep the name. Well, this year, it went to a new level because a lot of these big, high-profile sponsors were pulling out of sponsoring the Redskins. And so Dan Snyder finally came out and said, we're forming a committee to look at changing the name of the team. But anyway, if you want a really good kind of humorous look at it, go again. This was years ago. That's how long this was years ago. Go back and watch season 18, episode 1 of South Park, and watch that. Of course, my favorite episode of South Park of all time was their Warcraft episode. The Warcraft episode, favorite episode of all time. My next favorite was the writer's strike episode. Canada on Strike, I think was the name of the episode. My next favorite episode, which might have been combined with one of them, but was the shake weight episode. You'll get a cooling, refreshing splash. Sploosh. If you haven't seen the shake weight, just go. I encourage you, just go onto YouTube and look up South Park shake weight. It is one of the funniest freaking things of all time. It is one of the funniest freaking things of all time. Go and check it out. It's really, really funny. Anyway, thanks for that, Murray. Let's see. Next up, we got Man of Steel rules. Indeed it does. Writes, hey, John, I just finished watching your case for Man of Steel video. Thank you. So for those of you who know, I put up me and Jonathan, fact checker Jonathan, worked really hard actually on that one. I would love to do more editorial videos like that, but they do take days to make. Anyway, you can find on my YouTube channel, the case for Man of Steel, or just search YouTube, the case for Man of Steel. It should be the first video that comes up. It's like a 25-minute editorial we did on why I think Man of Steel is an underrated masterpiece. Anyway, Man of Steel vid, and you, my friend, nailed it. I believe your video showed vid show be attached as an after credit feature due to how well you detail the emotional weight of these characters. I'll tell you what, Warner Brothers, give me a call, man. You want to license my video and add it as a special feature to your upcoming, whatever your future releases of Man of Steel are? Give me a call, man. I would love for it to be attached. Yeah, Man of Steel. And look, half the people out there hate Man of Steel. And I respect that. I do. And I made that video not to convince, see everybody why you're wrong and I'm right, Man of Steel. No. I made that video basically kind of as a treatise of like, here's why I feel this way. This is what made an impact on me. It's not to convince you to change your mind, because I don't care if you change. If you hate Man of Steel, I don't care if you change your mind or not. Movie didn't work for you. Movie didn't work for you. That's fair. It's not to change anybody's mind or to make an argument. It's just that this is why it means so much to me. And it's not lost on me that, of course, I'm making that comment as I got Henry Cavill back here as Superman standing behind me. But it was really just kind of a look at why this movie is so special to me and why I find it to be so good. and why I find it to be special. Not why anybody else should, just why I personally do. And if Warner Brothers wants to take it and attach it moving forward, I think that's a great idea, Man of Steel rules. I'm a little biased. I think it's a great idea. All right, next up. An anonymous viewer writes, "Hi, John. 3 good movies coming out on streaming this weekend. The Old Guards with Charlize Theron. That's interesting. I haven't been thrilled with the trailers, but I am very interested to watch that. Greyhound with Tom Hanks on Apple Plus. Ooh, is that coming out this weekend? I totally forgot about that. Obviously, it's a Tom Hanks movie. I'm interested. Palm Springs with Andy Samberg. Here's the thing. Palm Springs with Andy Samberg, I didn't think the trailers were great, but I'm hearing amazing things about it. Even though it looks like a Groundhog Day and a Happy Death Day kind of ripoff, I'm hearing it's fantastic. I'm hearing it's really, really good. So yeah, I'm looking forward to all those. What excites you most? I think only because of the genre, I'll say the one that it probably excites me most is The Old Guards. Because, you're into a little bit of sci-fi there. They're immortal and all this kind of stuff. It's Charlize Theron, so I'm big on that. But right close second would be that Tom Hanks movie, because I was excited about it coming to theaters. And I am very interested in Palm Springs. Again, just because the word of mouth I've heard is extremely good. So it should be a really good weekend. Thanks for bringing that up, Anonymous. All right, Ben Rayner writes, "Hey, John, happy Tuesday. Happy Tuesday to you, Ben. At least Tuesday. Yeah, today is Tuesday. That's right. Hope you had a great weekend and a good 4th of July. The last few days, I rewatched 2 great movies, The Martian and Castaway. I love these movies. I love the message in both. Never give up. Which do you like more? I think I lean The Martian. They are 2 very different movies, but with a similar theme, right? A similar kind of premise. An individual stranded, trying to survive, trying to get home. One is on a deserted island. One is on a distant, faraway planet. The Martian, it's hard for me to put into words how much I like The Martian. That movie, and here's the thing too, a lot of people forget this. That when that movie came out, Ridley Scott was in the midst of a very bad streak. As hard as it is to imagine that, let me bring up Ridley Scott's IMDb here. Ridley Scott, one of the great filmmakers, was on a really bad streak for a while. Because he put out some really, like after Gladiator, he put out some really bad films. Like, for instance, immediately after Gladiator, he was still doing great. Black Hawk Down, Matchstick Men, which you talked about a little earlier. Kingdom of Heaven, give or take. Then you got into The Good Year, which I didn't think was bad, and American Gangsters is pretty good. But then he did Robin Hood with Russell Crowe, which he also did A Good Year with Russell Crowe, if I'm not mistaken. He did Robin Hood. Ridley Scott, Russell Crowe's one of my favorite actors in the world. Robin Hood's a great tale. Can't miss. That movie was awful. That movie was straight up garbage. Then Prometheus, some people love it. Some people really didn't like it. I was in that half of the camp that really didn't like Prometheus. I didn't think Prometheus was very good at all. Then he did The Counselor, which, if you wanted to hear some hilarious negative reviewing, you should have listened to John Schnepp reviewing The Counselor. The Counselor was terrible. It was really a special kind of bad. Then came Exodus, Gods and Kings, which honestly, I didn't think was all that bad. I personally didn't think Exodus, Gods and Kings was all that bad. Christian Bale, Joel Edgerton, John Turturro, Aaron Paul, Ben Mendelsohn, Sigourney Weaver, Ben Kingsley. I mean, it went on and on and on and on. But the movie also did get a lot of backlash for like whitewashing the cast and stuff like that. But a lot of people hated that movie. I didn't think it was all that bad, but a lot of people hated that movie. So you had Ridley Scott in kind of a losing streak, which was hard to imagine. And then came The Martian that he did with Matt Damon. Then came The Martian. And it was a truly great return to form for Ridley Scott. It's funny and thrilling and exciting and kind of deep. And it was just all those things. I still think I'll give the edge to Castaway. I mean, I was just, it's a movie that I still think about. Like every couple of weeks, I still catch myself thinking about Tom Hanks's Castaway. Probably more than I do about The Martian. But they are two wonderful movies, very different movies from each other, and they're both great, but I will personally kind of give the slight edge. To The Martian. All right. Next up, Murray Reich writes, what are your thoughts on Patrick Mahomes' massive contract extension? The John Campea Show could use some of that. Yeah, so it's a football question. Patrick Mahomes is a young quarterback for the Kansas City Chiefs. Came out of nowhere a few years ago as a rookie. Great rookie year. Then last year, they won the Super Bowl. He won an MVP. And he just signed. I haven't heard the official numbers right now, but he just signed a contract that could be worth $400 million. Good for you, man. Heard it's a 10-year deal for $400 million. Now, I'm sure some of that is going to be incentive-based. I'm sure some of that is going to be, a big chunk of it is going to be guaranteed. Like in the NFL, contracts aren't guaranteed, but you can build in certain guarantees. So like, and I'm sure probably like 200 million of that is guaranteed. Like they could cut Patrick Mahomes tomorrow. They still got to pay him $200 million, even if he doesn't play another day for them. Ta-da! I mean, right? Whereas in other sports where contracts are guaranteed, like if you sign a player to a $100 million deal, whether you play him or not, you got to pay them $100 million. There are some exceptions. But anyway, listen. I think Kansas City, I think was a good move. Look, hot quarterbacks. Remember RG3, Robert Griffin III? Like he was the hottest thing for about a year or two. And then his game kind of got exposed. And nobody was really interested in him all that much. That happens. That happens plenty, where there's a hot quarterback for a year or two, and then they kind of disappear. It happens. I don't think Patrick Mahomes is one of those. Now, look, we haven't seen Patrick Mahomes play for 5 seasons to see 5 great, consistent years. But I think Kansas City knows they've got a marketable superstar on their hands. And so they locked him up. 10 years, $400 million, could be more. But they believe that guy he's already won them a Super Bowl. They believe that guy is not just their present. He believes he is their future. And they believe he is the future of the NFL. That he is the next Tom Brady. He's going to be the guy who's going to be the face of the NFL for the next 10 years. And I'll tell you what, is it a gamble? Yes, because we haven't seen him sustain this for like 5 years straight. But I think it was a gamble worth taking. Patrick Mahomes is a special kind of talent. He is a special kind of talent. And I think it was, as ridiculous of a deal as it is, I actually think it was a pretty good deal for Kansas, and certainly good for Patrick Mahomes, who is now going to be rich for the rest of his children, his grandchildren, and his great-grandchildren's lives. So good on him for that. All right, next up, Steve Pintor writes, John, with everything going on in the sports world, I can only imagine if you followed your other dream about being a sports host. I would have loved to have seen that. Maybe Earth from John 23, also go Lakers. Yeah, I mean, I talk a lot. Obviously, I'm very much a big sports fan, and I follow sports very closely. A lot of the podcasts and YouTube shows I watch are sports related. And honestly, if I did not leave law to come and do movie punditry, which is my first love, I would be working for some sports radio station. I would be doing sports commentary. Because it's my second love. I love sports. I don't love every single sport, clearly, but I love sports. And that's why, like, when I started Movie Talk, and before Movie Talk, the iteration of Movie Talk before that was a show we did called For Your Consideration, was a show that we did. And, it was me and Dennis and Sol and a couple of other friends. And my goal, even when I created the world's first movie-based podcast, was called the Movie Blog Audio Edition. We were so early to the game that the term podcast hadn't been coined yet. But when we were doing the Movie Blog Uncut audio, or the Movie Blog Audio Edition, I decided that when me and my friends talk about movies, we don't talk about it like our tours. Not that there's anything wrong with that. That's great. There's a place for that, and it's wonderful and it's valuable. But I just recognize that me and my friends, we would often talk about movies kind of the same way we would talk about sports. And so when I was starting my movie show, I decided that instead of talking about it from the perspective of artists, I would talk about it from the perspective of fans, as a fan. And the way I talk about movies as a fan is kind of the same way that I talk about my fandom of sports. And so I wanted to make like the sports talk show for movie discussion. That's why one of the big phrases we coined when we started Movie Talk, it was ESPN Sports Center, and a lot of people would refer to us as this, and I always felt a bit of pride because that's exactly what I was going for. A lot of people would refer to us as ESPN Sports Center for movie fans, and I would love it when people would say that because that's exactly what we kind of went for. So it's kind of a merging of my two different fandoms and how I approach them each as a fan. So yeah, that's exactly what I would have been doing, Steve. If I wasn't doing this, I'd probably be working in sports to one degree or another, just because that's what I love to do. If I could have made it, and I don't know that I could have, but that's what I would have gone for. Anyway, thanks for writing that in, man. All right. Mr. Silva writes, one of two. Hello, John. We often speak on here about the undeniable power that films can have on us. Absolutely. I wanted to join in and share a small list of films that have impacted and changed my life for the better. Have you seen these? If so, what are your thoughts? Number one, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Well, yes, we've talked about that movie many times on the show. Love that movie. Great cast. Jim Carrey is kind of an eye-opener for a lot of people watching Jim Carrey. Love that movie. Incredible in-camera cinematography. Number two, The Diving Bell and the Butterfly. Inspiring true story of imagination. Three, Against the Current. I'm not familiar with Against the Current. Not familiar with that one. We'll talk about Diving Bell in a second. I'm not familiar with Against the Current. 4, Which Way Home, a documentary of the human spirit. I'm familiar with that film. I have not watched that one. I am familiar with Which Way Home. I have not watched that one. The Diving Bell and the Butterfly is a movie that, to my shame, I have to admit, I had to have somebody talk me into watching with them. Because I don't know, there's just something about it. Didn't look like the kind of movie that would be for me. So those of you who don't know, it's based on a true story about this magazine, the head of this magazine, who became like completely paralyzed other than, I believe, one eye. Like, I think it was like one eye that was, anyway. And it follows the life that he had prior to, during, and post that event. And it's I mean, the only word I know to put is powerful. You're right. It definitely makes an impact on you. And again, I mean, I turned to my buddy and I'm like, I am so glad you made me watch this. I think it came out in like 2005, 2006, somewhere around there. And it's powerful, it's beautiful, it's wonderful. I think a lot of you guys have already seen Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. I'm betting most of you have not seen The Diving Bell and the Butterfly. Check it out. It's worth it. And now I'm curious about Against the Current. Again, I'm not completely. Let me look that one up. Hold on a second. Give me a moment here. Against the Current. Oh, it's a Joseph Fiennes movie. I love, of course, Brothers with Ray Fiennes. Joseph and Ray Fiennes are the most gifted acting talent brothers, siblings in the movie business today. Struggling with a tragic past, a man with an urgent calling enlists two friends to help him swim the length of the Hudson River. Who else was in this? I'm not familiar with anybody else other than Joseph Fiennes, and Joseph Fiennes is amazing. For those of you who don't know, he's the commander in Handmaid's Tale. He was the lead in Shakespeare in Love. He's wonderful. One of my favorite, actually, Joseph Fiennes roles was he played opposite Al Pacino in my favorite Al Pacino performance of all time. Al Pacino played Shylock the Jew in Merchant of Venice, in a film version of Merchant of Venice, in which Joseph Fiennes stars alongside of him. It's my favorite Joseph Fiennes performance. And Al Pacino's my favorite performance of Al Pacino. And if you haven't seen that version of Merchant of Venice, you should go check that out. Anyway, great films to bring out, Mr. Sivia. Thank you so much for that. All right. Brian Rogers writes, just completed Last of Us 2. I'm sad, broken, and I loved it. Will you do a spoiler talk? I probably won't do a spoiler talk. There's really no point in me doing a spoiler talk because normally if I'm going to do any sort of review, whether it's spoiler review or a regular review, I need to do it the week something comes out. If I don't, then there's no point in doing it. There's nothing left to say about Last of Us 2 that hasn't already been said 100 times. So I probably won't. There's not a lot of value, I don't think. Not to mention, I don't think anybody's interested in a spoiler discussion of Last of Us 2 at this point. So there's really no point in me doing it. You know, everything's already been said, and I don't think a lot of people would watch that video anyway. So no, I won't. But I completely agree with your assessment there, Brian. Sad, broken, loved it. I mean, it's a powerful, powerful story. Anyway, thanks for writing that in, Brian. All right. Edward Wells writes, it's in your nature to destroy yourself. That's Terminator. The T-800, Terminator 2 Judgment Day, social distancing, wearing masks ignored, states opening rollbacks. When will we be able to sit inside a movie theater and enjoy a newly released film? I mean, as long as people are acting stupid, it's going to be a while. Like, that's the thing. Look, and I agree it's from a selfish point of view, but I get mad. You know what? Okay, so this cup, because I have ice in it, it has condensation on the outside. There's water on it. And the cup just touched my chest. And I just noticed it looks like I'm lactating. I'm lactating. Anyway, sorry. I get distracted easy. I'm sorry about that. Anyway, where were we at? Oh, yeah. I mean, as when movies like Tenet get bumped, and then Mulan get bumped, and then the opening theaters get bumped, blah, blah, blah. I just get mad because I blame all the idiots in the world who don't just do the basic common sense things to minimize risk. But yeah, you're right. It is in our nature to be stupid and destroy ourselves. You're right, Edward. You're right. All right, Ryan writes, John, how excited are you for 251? That's UFC 251. Pretty excited. Masvidal versus Usman confirmed. This card is stacked. Cannot wait. Also, shout out from Newmarket, Ontario. I dated a girl from Newmarket, Ontario. I really did. Big fan. Canada misses you, and I miss Canada very, very much. Yeah, Newmarket is great. So the whole area around Newmarket is great too, and I dated a girl from there for a little bit. I'm very excited for 251, but I got to tell you, I am less excited today than I was when it was going to be Usman versus Burns. Listen, I'm going to tell you this right now. Gilbert Burns destroys Jorge Masvidal. Destroys him. Totally obliterates him. Gilbert Burns, I believe, posed a much bigger threat to Usman than Jorge Masvidal does. And listen, anything can happen in a fight, and maybe Masvidal will shock the world. But personally, I don't see any area where Masvidal has any advantage over Usman. Usman is far more powerful. Usman is a better striker. A lot of people disagree with me on that. I'm sorry. I look at the tape. It's just the eye test. Usman is a better striker, and Usman is far superior on the ground. Far superior on the ground. So I just don't see how. I think Usman will stand and trade with Masvidal, and he'll hurt him a bit, and maybe he'll take some shots. But then at some point, Usman will decide it's time to take you to the ground. Now, Usman is not as good at this as, say, the baddest man on the planet, Habib Nurmagomedov. the Eagle. He's the baddest man on the planet. He's not as good at dragging somebody underwater like Khabib is, but there's not many people as good as him at it. I think Usman's going to maul him. I really do. I don't think it's going to be like a first round knockout or anything, but I don't see it going past round 3. And Usman also has insane cardio. Like, he doesn't slow down. He has insane cardio. And the longer that fight goes, the worse it's going to get for Masvidal. I think Masvidal knows to win this fight, he needs to try to get some kind of knockout in round 1. But anyway, overall, there's 3 title fights on the card. And even the non-title fights are stacked. I'm very much looking forward to this fight, man. I'm very, very much looking forward to this card. By the way, the Holloway rematch is also great. You've also got Aldo fighting for a title. I don't think he's going to win that fight, but and so you got 3 title fights. It's going to be great. It's going to be great. All right, Dave XP writes, John, who wins the battle for the most badass, Mr. Rogers or Dominic Toretto? Oh, that's easy, Mr. Rogers. Mr. Rogers, easy. Because I tell you what, in 2 minutes, Mr. Rogers will have all of Dominic Toretto's family turn against him. They'll just say, Mr. Rogers is right, Dom. You got anger issues. You need to come to grips with your feelings. Mr. Rogers, biggest badass ever walked the planet of the earth. I'm telling you that right now. He is the biggest badass ever to walk the earth. And I'm not even being facetious. I'm not even joking. Fred Rogers was the biggest badass ever to walk the face of the earth. I mean, so yes, I take Mr. Rogers in that every day. John McKinney writes, 1 of 2. I find it annoying that people ask critics or reviewers to be objective or use critical thinking. Put your emotions aside when it describes a movie or when someone it's their opinion. Reviews are opinions and they are entitled to their standards. I think it's arrogant and toxic to believe objectivity in film criticism. Movies are subjective. End of discussion. It should be common sense at this point. You're right. It should be common sense at this point. And normally what happens is when somebody says, be objective, I can almost guarantee you what that conversation is. That person is talking to somebody who doesn't have the same opinion as a movie of them. And they think that by saying, be objective, means that their opinion is right. It's not. You know, we had a similar discussion to this the other day, John, where somebody brought up, somebody brought up and said, you know what really drives me nuts when somebody says, you're overlooking the flaws of a movie when you're talking about a movie they don't like. And my response to that is, no. We just don't agree that what you're talking about is a flaw in the movie, right? You're just overlooking the flaws. No, it's just that you and I don't agree that this element and this element are flaws. I believe this is a strength. You believe it's a flaw. Okay, fair enough. You believe that's a flaw. I just don't see that as a flaw. And so normally when someone says, be objective, there is no being objective when it comes to interpreting art. There is no objective truth when it comes to art. That stick is 6 feet 2 inches tall. That can be measured. That's verifiable. It's not a matter of taste. It's not a matter of opinion. You can pull out a tape measure and measure that stick is 6 feet 2 inches tall. There's no discussion. That is objective truth. Is that joke funny? There's no measurement. There's no way to measure that. To some people, it will be funny. To others, it may not be. It's just the fact. Art is subjective. Every piece of art will hit people in an individual, unmeasurable way. And so, generally I find whenever you hear somebody saying, oh, that reviewer isn't being objective, what that basically means is the reviewer either liked or didn't like a movie, and that's the opposite how the person saying it felt. You like that movie? Well, then you're just not being objective. No, I am. To my own interpretation, in my own subjective opinion, I am being very clear-headed. This is how this movie impacted me. This is what I thought about the movie. Movies are experiential events. You can't take emotion out of it. That's part of the movie going. That's part of art, right? So yes, to me, it's a basic, clear understanding. Look, a lot of people give away the fact that they just don't get the most basic principle of movies. Film is subjective. And if somebody doesn't have that basic understanding of movies, then I just don't bother having a discussion with them, because there's no point in having the discussion. If somebody doesn't understand that movies are subjective, there's no point in trying to talk to them, because there's nowhere for our conversation to go. This movie's better than that movie. Prove it. Prove it. You can't prove it because it can't be measured, right? Like, I love the Oscars, but even saying, like, if you take a movie that won Best Picture, that doesn't prove it was better than another film. It raises a great point to be mentioned that, hey, this movie won Best Picture. It's a good sign that a lot of people loved it, but it doesn't prove anything, right? And so, yeah, John, I mean, that to me is the absolute ultimate starting foundation of film fandom. You must understand that film is subjective. It's the basic starting point of being a film fan, to me, at any rate. All right, anyway, Star Wars Rocks writes, "Hi, John. Hello, Star Wars Rocks. I'm just wondering if you've watched the Eurovision movie." No, I haven't. I've been way too busy. Even though I'm the John Campea Show's on hiatus, I've been working a lot on my movie. I've been spending a lot of hours sitting in this chair, working on my documentary. Working on my movie at the moment. And so no, I have not watched although I've heard Eurovision is not bad. That's the new Rachel McAdams, Will Ferrell movie. And it looked terrible, but I'm actually hearing it's pretty good. So I do want to watch it at some point. Anyway, just wondering if you've watched the Eurovision movie yet, and if you liked it, in addition to whether you also started watching The Miraculous, The Tales of Ladybug and Chat Noir. Nope. And I'm not going to lie to you. That's probably a good year away before I get around to watching that. I just got too much other stuff so stacked up. So no, unfortunately, I've not watched Eurovision yet, but I am interested because I'm hearing some good things about it. And no, I'm still probably a good distance away from Miraculous Tales of Ladybug and Chat Noir. So yeah, that's where I'm at right now. But I keep, by the way, guys, if some of you have watched it, do me a favor and jump down in the comments and just let me know that you enjoyed it. Because I was shocked to hear a number of people saying, you know what, this movie's pretty good. Because it didn't look so good, but I'm hearing it's actually all right. All right, thanks for that, Star Wars Rocks. All right, Saberwolf writes, "John, do you prefer the Fellowship of the Ring extended edition over the theatrical version?" No. I love the extended edition, but the theatrical version is still... that is the movie to me. That is the movie. The theatrical edition is the movie. The extended edition is nice additional material that I really do enjoy, but the theatrical version of the movie is my favorite version. Anyway, Boromir is my favorite. I love the Boromir character. He's actually my favorite character in literature as well. Boromir is my favorite literary character. Before Lord of the Rings, the movies ever came out, Boromir is my favorite character in literature. The theme of redemption is always something that has appealed to me a lot. And the redemptive arc of Boromir has always been one that I've loved. Anyway, Boromir is my favorite. Such a badass. One of the best scenes is when him and Aragorn are talking in Lothlorien. Amazing scene, but only in the extended edition. Are you talking about the scene, have you ever seen it, Aragorn? The White City, with flags flying high in the wind, and the horns calling us home. Have you ever seen it, Aragorn? Someday our paths will take us there, and the call will go out. The lords of Gondor have returned. If you're talking about that speech, was that not in the regular... it's a great speech, but is that scene not in the regular theatrical version? Or am I thinking of something else? I'm trying to remember. I'm trying, like, I'm looking in the live chat to see if anybody can tell me that. But is that speech that ends with, Boromir putting his hand on his shoulder and saying, "One day our paths will take us there, and the cry will go out, the lords of Gondor have returned"? Is that from the extended version, or is that from the regular theatrical? I thought that was the regular theatrical, but maybe that's the extended one. But anyway, yeah, overall, I still do personally prefer the theatrical version, because, again, to me, that is the version of the movie. That is the definitive version of the movie, is that one. So that's kind of how it works for me. All right. Thanks for that, Saberwolf. Let's see here. Henri Martens writes, Will you be checking out Spielberg's? I can already tell you the answer is probably no. If you're talking about the Quibi thing, will you be checking out Spielberg's upcoming horror show on Quibi? It's called After Dark, and it's his first writing project since AI, but it'll only be available to watch on the app after sunset, which is a ridiculously stupid gimmick in my opinion. Listen, I'm kind of the opinion that Quibi itself is a ridiculously stupid gimmick. What I don't mind, the idea of short content, short bite-sized content, where the special or the episode is like, what was it, like 10 minutes long? 10 minutes? Something like that. It's a neat idea. It's a neat idea. I never thought it would catch on though. But then this thing that you could only watch it on a mobile device, like you couldn't put the app on your Roku or whatever and watch it on your television. So you're limiting how people can access it. That's not a feature. A limitation isn't a feature. I don't care what anybody tells you. A limitation isn't a feature. And anyway, so honestly, I have no interest in Quibi. I have no interest in it. Even with Spielberg writing something for it, I'm not interested in some 10-minute bite thing or whatever from Spielberg. I want a movie from Spielberg, you know what I mean? So no, I personally have no desire to download, install, sign up for Quibi. I have no desire for it. I'm not saying other people shouldn't. I'm not saying you should boycott Quibi. I'm not saying you should uninstall Quibi if you have it. Not at all. I'm just saying it was an interesting idea that I don't think works, and it really doesn't have my attention. So anyway, that's just it for me, Henri. All right. Next up here, we've got Mike the Man, who writes, "Hey, John, I love the film Wind River." Oh, dude, me too. That movie's so freaking strong. That movie's, I don't know how it didn't get more Oscar love. I really don't. It's one of those movies where I walked out of the theater and just my jaw was open. Like, I couldn't just believe how powerful it was. And near the end, when he's talking to the father and oh my God. Anyway, the movies is fantastic. Jeremy Renner, so good in it. Elizabeth Olsen, so good in it. Anyway, I showed it to my friend and he said that the assault scene ruined the whole movie for him. Really? Do you think one scene like that is justified to say you hate the whole movie? I know it's all subjective though. Thoughts? Well, listen, the assault scene, I'm going to say something a little controversial. What was that Peter Jackson movie called again? Hold on a second. The one where the young girl gets murdered and then it's being narrated. Basically, it's being narrated by her ghost. I'm trying to remember the name of it. The Lovely Bones. The Lovely Bones was the name of it. And oh my God, how good was Stanley Tucci in that movie? How good was Stanley Tucci in that movie? I'm going to say something a little controversial here. And I remember talking about this when the movie first came out. Of course, Stanley Tucci is this awful monster who kidnapped, raped, and killed a young girl, right? In the movie. I remember saying when the movie came out, I think there was an emotional hook missing from the film. Because in the movie Lovely Bones, you know what Stanley Tucci, what his character did to the Saoirse Ronan's character. She was just a young girl at the time. What year did that movie come out? 2000. It's an 11-year-old movie at this point. So you know what he did to her, but you never experience it in the movie. And to me, I'm not, and I don't mean this on the level of we need something gratuitous. That's not what I'm talking about. And not every movie needs to do this. But I think some movies and some stories, with where they go, they need you as the audience member to truly understand something. You have to emotionally experience it. With the scene, with the Wind River, I think that scene, while very disturbing and very uncomfortable, if we don't experience, and again, I'm just speaking from my own point of view, if we don't experience that as an audience in that movie, then we won't understand or appreciate the emotional depth of what the other characters are facing and feeling as the story progresses. And in the case of Lovely Bones, I actually felt a little bit like there was a little bit of emotional dissonance, I guess you could say, between myself as an audience member and that, because I never emotionally had to experience what she went through, the experience she had with this monster. And so I never really felt the total depth of how much of a monster he truly was, even though I intellectually knew it. And again, I'm not saying that you have to throw in all this gratuitous stuff in all these movies, not at all. I just think for some stories, the storyteller needs to take us as the audience member to a place where, for us to fully understand the weight of what is going on narratively, we need to be taken to that place so we can experience it with the characters on screen. Sometimes that's just gratuitous, but sometimes it's not. And I kind of felt like that scene in Wind River was a scene that took me as an audience member to that place to feel just how vile this whole situation was. And having that experience allowed me to appreciate more the depth of everything that happened in the movie moving forward. Again, I that's not necessarily going to be true for everybody. And so you have a friend that saw that scene and said for them, it totally ruined the experience for them. Hey, that's how it happened for them. That was the experience they had. And I don't want to take anything away from their experience from it, but that's just kind of how I feel about it. And again, I know not everybody agrees with me, and I get it, but that's just kind of how I feel about it. Anyway, that's just my thought on that. Okay, let's move on here. Next up, Rylan Holman writes, "Hello, John. Hope you are having a good day. I am having a good day. Thank you, Rylan. I've seen rumors circulating online about the sequel trilogy, episodes 7 through 9, being dropped from the canon and a supposed war between Favreau and Filoni and Kennedy. While I believe this is false, do you see any bit of truth?" No. John Favreau loves Kathleen Kennedy. I'm not saying he should or shouldn't. You guys know I feel that Kathleen Kennedy should step down as the head of Lucasfilm. I believe she's one of the all-time great producers ever in the history of Hollywood, but she's not a studio head. I thought she was a great hire at first. I thought she was a great choice. On paper, she was. And sometimes you do things on paper and you just realize it doesn't work out practically. And I just don't believe that she has turned out to be a good executive for that company. And I believe she should probably step down, even though I think she's great at being a producer. It's not good. But John Favreau loves Kathleen Kennedy. I have been told that by people close to the situation. So this whole thing about they're going to, that the sequel trilogy is going to be taken out of canon, don't believe any of it. Look, we live in a world where Michael Keaton is coming back to play Batman again. So that means anything is possible. But just because something is possible doesn't mean you should count on it. And this whole thing about Lucasfilm is going to remove Star Wars from canon, don't believe a single thing about that. If it comes out that it's true someday, great. Then that'll shock the world and we can talk about it then. But in the meantime, yeah, don't buy it. Don't buy that at all. All right, next up. Alan writes, "Hi, John. Love the show. Thank you so much, man. I recently watched the Gambit fan film and thought it was pretty good. What's your opinion on fan films in general? And should people be able to use songs/products in their movies? Why should a studio care or try to punish them?" I love fan films in general. I mean, a lot of them are shit, but I love them as fan films. You know, I've seen some fan films where people go, well, that's better than the movie. No, it's not. No, in no way is it better than the movie. But as a fan film, they're great. I have a particular love in my heart for fan films. One of the first things that I ever did creatively in terms of filmmaking was I made a fan film. Me and a bunch of friends, we made a Star Wars fan film that we actually won a couple of awards for, although it's awful. I rewatched it again for the first time in 10 years, and it's terrible. Anyway, I made a fan film. I've got a deep love of fan films. A friend of mine made I believe still to this day, the greatest fan film of all time. It's Kevin Rubio's Troops. It's the best fan film of all time, Star Wars or otherwise. It's the best fan film ever made. I love fan films, but I love them for what they are. Fans expressing their fandom, doing some of their own creativity. I think it's great. I love watching it. I also understand, though, that companies need to protect their IP. I also understand that. People are just like, people just don't understand law or business. That's the problem. People just don't understand law or business. So when Star Wars allows people to use their characters, whatever, in their things, that's them being very generous. But they also have to be very careful about setting legal precedent. Because let's say, what's to stop Warner Brothers from putting Darth Vader in something? I'm going to an extreme hyperbole example here, okay? I'm going to an absolute extreme hyperbole example. But what's to stop Warner Brothers from using Darth Vader? Saying, well, hey, listen, Your Honor, Disney and Lucasfilm allowed other people to use it without contract, without licenses, without permission. Your Honor, there is a precedent that Disney allows other people to make things with their IP and their characters. Where does the line get drawn? There are people who make Star Wars fan stuff and put it up on YouTube and make money from it. And they don't own the rights to those characters. They don't own the rights to that IP, and yet they do it. And to some degree, Star Wars will allow them to do it or don't. Star Trek has been much more, Paramount's been much more a tighter leash on that than others. But I understand why. Because, look, you can damage an IP. And you can say, oh, everybody knows it's just a joke. Well, no, that's not necessarily true. Like, people create IP and then are very protective of that IP and are very protective of its image and how it portrays. And when you just allow people to take your IP and do whatever they want with it, that does carry the potential to damage your IP. So people are using your IP to damage your IP all at the same time. Look, all I'm saying is, before people, because I know everybody hates the man, whoever the man is at any given time. Everybody hates the man. But whenever you hear the next story about a studio not allowing a certain fan film to be done or whatever, instead of just rushing with the mob to go, whoa, you're the man, take a second to think about there are actual repercussions. And there are potential downfalls and negatives for the owners of the IP. For the most part, I think it's harmless fun. I think it's harmless fun. And a lot of studios treat it as harmless fun. But I think we need to recognize that is the studios being very generous. I don't blame any body, whether it's a studio or an individual. I don't hold blame against any body out there that feels the need to keep a tight leash and protect their intellectual property. I don't hold that against them. I think it's great when they allow it to happen. I don't really hold it against them when they don't allow it to happen. It's like, hey, you're trying to make a name for yourself and you're trying to earn money and you're trying to create stuff that base off stuff that belongs to us. You don't own it. You didn't pay us a licensing fee. And now other people are going to see our character in your thing that we have no control over, and you might make our character look. I mean, all I'm saying is, I think it's great when studios are generous and allow fan films to be made of their properties. But I don't really I know it's the cool thing to say, oh, studio's bad. I know that's the cool thing to do. But honestly, I think, of course, I come from a legal background. I think you have to look at the bigger picture. And I understand when a studio feels the need to say, you know what, this is our IP. We need to protect it. And we can't allow certain precedents to be made. And we got to not allow you to do that. I think it's great when they do allow it, but I think it's understandable when they don't. So anyway, that's just kind of my thought on that. But I love a good fan film. I really do. I get a big kick out of them. All right. Paris Lazarus writes, "Hey, John. Recently, I feel like social media is ruining movie releases, and more recently, game releases. I almost didn't enjoy The Rise of Skywalker and The Last of Us 2 because of leaks. It's very hard for new media to have mystery and allow the audience to go in fresh. Thoughts?" Oh, no, it's true. I mean, that's something that we talk about a lot. That gets brought up a lot, not just on this show, but in fandom in general. The whole idea about spoilers that get out there. I mean, it is nutty crazy how well, like, Marvel movies or whatever are able to hold in spoilers, or a lot of movies that come out, or how Christopher Nolan films are able to stay pretty secretive. But listen, we live in an age, I don't have my phone here, but let's pretend this remote control is a phone. We live in an age right now where every single human being walks around with a global audio-visual telecommunications device in their pocket. We all walk around. Like when I was in grade school, if I saw a dog dancing on one foot while balancing a ball on his nose, something I would think is impossible. There's no way I can share that with people. Nobody will know about this. But once, I got into college, high school, everybody was walking around with audio-visual global telecommunication devices in their pocket. That means anything that anybody sees at any time, a picture can be taken, a note can be made, whatever, and then instantly shared with the world. How you keep movies or video games or any type of new media under any kind of secrecy in an environment like that is astounding and a little bit unbelievable. Astounding and a little bit unbelievable. And it's a problem that's not going to go away. I mean, until, and it has happened in some situations, but studios need to find out who was the source of the leak, and then you sue them to death and maybe even prison time and stuff like that. And you make examples out of people doing it. I'm not saying that's what they should do. I'm just saying I don't see any other way to change it. Because these movies, hundreds, if not thousands of people are involved with these movies. Hundreds of people are involved in the creation of these video games. That's hundreds and hundreds of opportunities for somebody with a global audiovisual telecommunication device in their pocket to capture something or share something immediately that they find out. And until studios and creators find a better way of isolating where those leaks came from and then making a horrible example out of the people who did it, it's going to continue to be a problem, and it's going to continually put the onus on a lot of outlets to try to not share it. Here's the thing. A big spoiler comes out and a leak happens, right? And some website shares everything that happens in X movie. And they try to then play innocent and go, "Oh, listen, we put a very specific title. Only people who wanted to know what happens in X movie when it. We made the title that, so if anybody finds out all the spoilers in this movie, it's not our fault." Well, here's the problem. Yeah, maybe everybody who went to your site to see and hear and read the spoilers, now they have the spoilers, and they can go out and disseminate those spoilers. And they can go out and bomb the spoilers on chat boards and on Twitter and wherever else they want to. They can just now go. So maybe you didn't, you're not the one who, fired the bullet, the spoiler bullet as it is, but you're the one who gave out all the bullets to everybody who then went out and did fire off the spoiler bullets. So yeah, there are a bunch of people who try to play innocent. It's like, "Oh no, like we didn't do this. We just put it up there for people who wanted to know about it." Yeah, but then you enabled and you disseminated the information, and now thousands and thousands more people who don't have such pure motives as you do. And so there's got to be a new onus taken by sites to say, we will not share this information. We don't want to share this information. But it's going to be a battle, Paris, that's going to be going on for a while. It's a battle that's going to be going on for a while. All right, next up, 50-year-old Finnish Flash writes, AMC owned theater chains in the Nordic countries have opened successfully. In Finland, they opened on the 24th, and tomorrow, all their theaters are open. Will studios dare to release big films outside of the US if the theaters function normally there? No. No, I don't see that happening. I can see some smaller studio stuff, like that new little studio that's putting out the new Russell Crowe movie Unhinged. I could maybe see them doing it. I haven't heard that they're doing that. But no. Disney's not going to release Mulan in Finland and Australia and New Zealand and not open it in the US. They're not going to do that. Warner Brothers isn't going to release Tenet in a couple of countries here and there and not have it released in the biggest movie market in the world. They're not going to do that. Now, I think there's an interesting discussion there to be had about whether they should or whether they can. There's an interesting discussion there to be had about that. But I think they've been very, very clear that is not their plan. They're not going to release these movies until they're going to be able to release them in the States. That doesn't mean they open first in the States. Like, they may open in other countries 1 or 2 days early or whatever, but they're not going to plan a release of this film in these other countries when we don't even know when the theaters here are going to be opened. I just don't see them doing that, unfortunately. But in the meantime, you can enjoy some great classic movies that maybe you never would have got to see on the big screen again, all because of that. Anyway, good question, 50. All right, Dancing Dog 60 writes, John, what's your take on YouTube TV going from $49.99 to $65 during a pandemic and only adding 8 channels that are kind of good or bad business? P.S. Affleck was the bomb in Phantom. Yeah, there's that. I am a YouTube TV subscriber. Now, there's a lot of TV streaming apps you can use. Hulu has one. There's what's the name of the one? It starts with an S. It's one I used to belong to. Anyway, I used to have TV Dish streaming service. I've tried almost all of them. The one that works best for me is YouTube TV. I like YouTube TV very, very much. They just took a really big, significant price jump. They did add a bunch more channels, including the one I'm really excited about that they just added was the Paramount Network. I was very, very excited. I've been wanting the Paramount Network. There was also another one that they added that I was very excited about. At any rate, the reality is that $15 jump wasn't just a result of these new, I think they added 8 new networks. A couple of them I'm very excited about. It wasn't just a reflection of the 8 new networks. I believe if they didn't launch these new networks, there was still maybe not that much of a price increase. I believe there was still a price increase coming because the cost, I believe, of that content has been getting higher. The licensing agreements for them to be able to broadcast those networks on their service have gotten higher. And they do offer a lot. And by the way, they have this unlimited cloud DVR. Like we've got our TV set where our YouTube TV set where, every time this show comes on, record it to the cloud. And then I just have to go into my library on my YouTube TV app, and there's all the stuff that's recorded all the time whenever I want. By the way, it also, even if you don't record it, I can go in there and go, I'll just give you an example. Ann and I we were just in the mood the other day because we were looking at a house, and we were just in the mood to watch this HGTV show called Love It or List It. There's an HGTV show called Love It or List It. The basic premise is there's a family that doesn't like their house. So you got a real estate agent and a designer. The designer is going to redo their house to try to make them want to stay. The real estate agent is going to try to show them a bunch of other houses that fit their needs better to try to get them to move. And then at the end of the show, once the real estate agent has showed them all these new houses, and once the designer has finished the renovation on their house, they decide, are we going to love our house? Or are we going to sell it? Are we going to list it? None of you care about that, but whatever. Just here's an example. Ann and I are just in the mood to watch an episode of Love It or List It. I can go on YouTube TV, and even though I didn't record Love It or List It, I can just go search for episodes, and I can go through seasons of Love It or List It that are on there and find any episode I want from any season at any time. So it's kind of like a Hulu and a it's killing me to remember anyway, another service that streams television all at the same time. It's like a whole bunch matched into one. It really is a great service. YouTube TV, it really is a great service. But that $65 a month was a big jump. But I got to say, they have almost everything on there that I want. The ability to go and search through any episode of almost any TV show I want being there is pretty cool. The ability to have an unlimited cloud DVR that I can just set to record any time that I want and then watch it from any device that I want at any time. It's a pretty good service. And so I was a little like, 65? I think when I first signed up for YouTube TV, I think it was $40. I think it was $40 when I first signed up. Anyway, it's like that steep, but then I had to evaluate. Am I getting value for that amount of money? And to me, yeah, I think $65 for what I'm getting, I still think is decent value. I'm not tremendously happy about it, but I still think it's decent value. And so I decided, you know what? No, I'm not going to switch services, whatever. I just get too much with YouTube TV. I really do like the way it works. I really like its interface. I find it to be very intuitive to use, and the capabilities of it are really good for me and my needs at any rate. So, yeah, but again, it was a big jump in price, but probably one that probably worth it still. It's still a good service. So I'm going to stick with it for now. All right. Thanks for that, Dancing Dog. All right, Dave Coker writes, greetings from Hamilton, John, my hometown, the Steel City, the Hammer. We have 74 cases in Hamilton at the moment with a population of over 500,000. So our Cineplex Ancaster is reopening this month. Cannot wait to go back. So Cineplex Ancaster, that used to be called Silver City. You have no idea how many movies I have gone to the Cineplex Silver City in Ancaster. Now, I think they don't call it Silver City anymore. Anyway, it's my favorite movie theater for the longest time. I actually drove thousands of miles from Saskatchewan, Saskatoon, Canada, to drive all the way back to Hamilton just so I can go and watch Phantom Menace in that theater. Oh, I've seen them all there, man. I've seen them all in that theater. Anyway, and when I do visit back in Canada, I usually go back and drop in and go to see at least one movie there, although I do not like Cineplex nearly as much as I used to. Actually, I kind of despise them now, but I've gone to see a lot of movies there. And anyway, so when it opens back up, I hopefully you're going to get to see Mulan and Tenet in there soon. But hey, just opening up and being able to go back and see some classic movies on the big screen is awesome. Thanks for writing that in, Dave. I got to get back to Hamilton soon. All right. Mo writes, Joel and Ellie museum scene was the most cinematical scene I've seen in a video game. By the way, did you see that Laura Bailey, the actress responsible for bringing Abby to life, has been receiving death threats on Twitter? That's crazy. Yeah, I know. That and other people. Look, there's nothing else to say out there. There are idiots out there. There are massive, insane idiots. But we know that, right? Like, look at the response that the girl played Rose got, right? Apparently, like, a lot of the staff at Naughty Dog have been getting death threats and all this kind of stuff from really insecure morons. Listen, it's one thing to like or dislike something. That's fine. I hated Assassin's Creed. Did I write emails insulting the director's mother to the guy who did Assassin's Creed? No, it's a movie. I didn't like it. Fine. Let's move on. I'll tell you why I didn't like it. I'll tell you how much I don't like it. But it's a movie. We like and we dislike movies. Fine. Move on. But there are so many people who also have their personal political agendas really wrapped up in their entertainment. And you can tell that from a mile away. When somebody's got a personal political agenda, it becomes really, really clear. And they use a movie or a TV show or a video game to be a place to plant their flag to try to promote their own agenda. And it's also kind of a human thing to do. But yeah, but you see things like that taken way too far. It's like, listen, there are people who like and dislike. I don't like Rise of Skywalker. There are people who do like it. That's great. I love Man of Steel. There's a lot of people who don't. I respect that. There are things to like and dislike, but yeah, the amount of angst that then some people take. Like, there are movies I hate. And if we're just talking about the movie, I'll talk about how much I hate a movie. But then going beyond that and making it about the personal character of the people who made the movies or made the games or stuff like it, it just shows how idiotic a lot of people are. And you're right, there's no excuse for that. There's no excuse for that. It's just absolutely ridiculous and shows just how far. And here's the other thing. It really troubles me that there are a lot of, like, for instance, I know there are sites that have their position. They hated The Last of Us 2. But if you're a site like that, you need to step up and you also need to call out people who do shit like that. Instead, a lot of these sites encourage that behavior. And that's where it gets dangerous. And it's just a sad sign of the idiotic times we live in. Anyway, John McKinney writes, I know you mentioned your favorite South Park episode. Mine is the episode when Stan gets sucked into Facebook. It inspired us to get a Facebook account. That's just me, to each their own. I remember that one vaguely. That one wasn't one of my favorites, but I remember that one vaguely. Oh yeah. Here's the funny thing. South Park, to me, is actually a hit and miss show. Like, there are episodes of that show that I will laugh for days watching it. Like, they got a lot of great all time that I could sit down and watch anytime. But the reality too is South Park is also a show where they could put out a number of episodes every year that are just, I'll forget about that one really fast. Like, they're a little bit hit and miss, but oh my God, when they hit, it's like all-time classic kind of hit. It's absolutely amazing. All right. Next up, Zevia, sponsor me, you sons of bitches. That's right. Zevia writes, movie celebrating 10 years this week. Despicable Me. Wow. Is that turning 10? Predators and The Girl Who Played with Fire, and celebrating 20 years, Scary Movie, and The Kid. The Kid was a movie that did not get the credit it deserved. I'm not a fan of Scary Movie, but The Kid is a movie that did not get the credit it deserves. But Despicable Me, that's 10 years. Yeah, I guess it would be. I mean, because we've had Despicable Me 2, Despicable Me 3, we've had Minions, I guess, yeah. I guess that makes sense. But it's still weird to think. I still remember talking about the trailer for the first Despicable Me. Remember when they're at the pyramids and all that kind of stuff? Dun, 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 dun. And they're at the pyramids and the tourists sing. And man, 10 years, dude, that stuff makes you feel old. That's now a decade. Boom. Just passed like that. Absolutely crazy. All right. B. Wayne writes, hey, John, just wanted to say how sorry I am about the tragic loss of Aaron Cummings' good friend, Broadway star Nick Cordero, from COVID-19. I heard Aaron. I heard Aaron and hoped he would beat this. This is just a staunch reminder that no one is immune. Please just wear a mask. Yeah, so you guys have probably seen on the news. It was on the front thing of a lot of the major news outlets. Broadway star Nick Cordero passed away from coronavirus. And we've talked a lot about that on this show because Nick and his wife are personal friends of Aaron and Tom. Aaron and her husband, Tom. I believe Nick, I don't want to speak out of turn, but I believe Nick was in their wedding party. Here's something, though, that is really, really weird. I did not know Nick is from my home. Nick's from Hamilton. Nick is from Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. And I totally didn't realize that till a few days ago. I had no idea. He went to high school with some people I know. And it was really weird because I was on Facebook the other day and seeing some of my high school friends also writing about Nick because they personally knew him back in the day. And yeah, it was really tragic to hear. It's a sad story. They had just also had a kid. Terribly tragic, absolutely terribly tragic. So thanks for your well wishes. And I haven't spoke to Erin, but I did call her and I left a message for her, and I'm just going to give her a few days. I haven't spoken to Aaron since he passed away, but yeah, it's just a devastating loss for the people who knew him and family, and for a lot of people who back in my hometown used to go to school together. I had no idea he was from my home city. I had no idea. Anyway, thanks for sending that in, Wayne. All right, Russell Amador writes, "Hey John, have you seen Come to Daddy? It's on Amazon Prime and stars Elijah Wood. I thought it was a solid little flick. It starts off as one movie, then completely goes in a different direction. If you have ever seen 2 Hours to Spare, check it out." I've never even heard of it. I've never even heard of this. Hold a second. Come to Daddy. Let's see here. 2019. I've never even heard of it. A man in his 30s travels to a remote cabin to reconnect with his estranged father. Okay. Yeah, I've never heard of it. Stephen McHattie is his, I guess, plays his dad, who I'm not familiar with, although he was in The Fountain, which I'm trying to remember who he was in The Fountain. But nope, never heard of that. I might have to check that out at some point, because I do like Elijah Wood. I like Elijah Wood, so I might have to check that out at some point. All right, final question of the day, guys. We've gone just a little over 2 hours here. Nerds of Porn writes, "Did you see the trailer for David Ayer's new film, The Tax Collector with Shia LaBeouf?" Dude, I'm so glad you brought that up, because I meant to bring it up, and I totally forgot about it. That movie looks balls. That movie looks straight up balls good. If you have not seen the new trailer for The Tax Collector, directed by David Ayer, go and watch it. This looks awesome. I can't remember whether it might be months since I've been this excited by a trailer. Like, seriously, it's been months since a trailer has excited me this much. It's so good. Now remember, I always say that the job of a trailer is to take your excitement, however how high or how low it is, but take wherever it is and bump it up a few notches, right? This trailer, I had heard that this project was being done. Not real interest. I mean, a little bit more interest after seeing, a couple of Shia's movies over the last couple of years. But I saw this trailer for The Tax Collector, and it instantly went like right near the top of my most anticipated movies. It looks so good. If you guys have not seen the trailer for Tax Collector, take Nerds of Porn advice, go and watch it. You will be glad that you did. And speaking of being glad of things you did, guys, I'm so glad that you made today's open mic a part of your day. Don't forget, guys, the John Campea Show proper will return this coming Monday. So July 13th, the John Campea Show will return. I'm going to tell you something, too. A little bit of in-house cleaning here. I'm going to tell you something I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about changing the start. Now, the John Campea Show normally, when it's on, would start at 9 a.m. I've been doing these open mics at 10 a.m. just so I've been able to sleep in a little bit more. I am on hiatus, but anyway. I'm thinking about changing the start time of the John Campea Show to like noon, to like 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Because right now it's at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. I'm thinking about changing the start time to either 10 a.m. because I've been really liking getting a little more sleep. Either 10 a.m. or maybe even like 12 p.m. I don't know yet. I'm just kind of playing around with that. So if you guys have thoughts, email me at john@thejohncampeashow.com. That's john@thejohncampeashow.com. If you got some thoughts about that, let me know. Maybe you like the 9 a.m. start time. Maybe you think 10 is even better. Maybe you think 12 would be great. Maybe you think one of those would be awful. I don't know. Email me at john@thejohncampeashow and let me know what you think. But either way, the John Campea Show does return on Monday. We're going to do another open mic on Thursday, guys. So no open mic tomorrow. We're going to do an open mic on Thursday. Hopefully you guys will come back. And by the way, maybe you're watching the show for the first time, you have no idea. If you want to send in a question or comment for the show, and if you want to support the channel at the same time, you can just use the tip link that's right here. You can also find it in the top of the description of this video. So you can just click on it there, or you can enter it manually, streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. And you can even send it in now, and it'll be one of the first ones to get answered on Thursday's show. All right, guys. That will do it for me for today's show. Thanks so much for being here. Remember, guys, stay smart, stay safe, take care of yourselves, and most importantly, take care of the people around you. That'll do it for me. My name is John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.